The Leafs got a little luck on St. Patrick's Day. Is it enough to say that they're back? We'll discuss that and more here on the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You're Locked On Maple Leafs, your daily podcast on the Toronto Maple Leafs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Leafs podcast, a daily Maple Leaf Center podcast hosted by myself, David Morassutti, and joining me today is my man James from Offside Hockey Talk. He is a usual guy who has to come and pinch it. I got like a good, nice, solid rotation. I figured let's get James back into the fold here. So first off, James, thank you for coming back for tonight's show.
No worries, buddy. I'm here anytime you need me, especially after a Leafs win.
Yes, especially after a Leafs win. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKDOWNNHL for $20 off your first purchase. If you happen to use Game Time to get a little bit of a savings on the Leafs game, you came away with the game where they actually won, and they ended the losing streak. Whew, feels good. 6-2 over the Calgary Flames. And they must have known James was coming because they wanted to make sure James was going to have a good time on the show and a reason for him to stay up a little bit later. You're an East Coaster, so these even though it was only a 7:30 start, not a 7:30 start, 7:45 start. They must have known you were coming to make sure you're going to have a good time on the show today.
Listen, I'll take that any day of the week. It put to bed every notion that was a problem in Leafs Nation, at least for one night. Obviously, Colorado coming in midweek, and we'll see where that goes. But tonight dispelled a whole bunch of things everybody was upset about. There's no complaints across the board. At least there shouldn't be.
No complaints. Are you sure about that? Yeah, no. A victory like this, I'll say this. It could have gone in a totally different direction this game because they got off to the lead with Max Domi scoring, pretty early and starting to continue to look like the Max Domi that many were expecting. Now up to 6 goals on the year for Max Domi, so that's always nice to see. But it was all looking so good. The Leafs were controlling the chances on net. And Rasmus Andersson scored, let's just call it a pretty weak goal on Joseph Woll, a goal that you want your goalie to have, and it's almost like this is not going to start happening again, is it? We're not going to start this whole song and dance of, scoring, take the lead, give up a back-breaking goal, and maybe see the tires fall off a little bit here. Did you have a little bit of that feeling after that first period?
With that goal, I think it was, 47 seconds left. I was like, why can't we just escape the period with the lead? Why did we have to give it up? And it was a needless goal too, but a nice pass as well from the Flames to make it all happen. But you look at that and you say, okay, you're wanting this team to finally figure things out and respond. So how do they respond to that? Do they falter like they have been? Or do they figure it out and come out in the second period, dictate the pace again, and get themselves going? There's one of two ways it could go, and on this night, it looked like a night that was going to go the right way, and it did, full steam ahead. But I think you're going to get to something that might have changed the game if it went a different way.
Yes, so obviously the Leafs took a 2-1 lead in the second period. Then for the second time in the game, Nick Robertson took a pretty foolish penalty.
I thought he was getting stapled to the bench, and I'll fully take any marks on Twitter. Everybody yelling at me.
I love Craig Berube's response. Take the fingers over because he can't pull any hair back. He's just like, oh, Nick, you're gonna be sitting right next to me the rest of the game, bud. That's what I thought was gonna happen. Then I was like, oh no, they score the goal. They score a goal to make it 2-2, and I'm like, oh, brother, what's going on here? But the MVP, Jordan Bean, video coach, is like, no, I got you, Nicky Bobby. And I thought the Amazon broadcast did a really good job explaining this, because that obviously nobody thought offside. They had a lot of time in the zone and a lot of time to look at that play.
Yeah.
So credit them for being on that right from the jump. And it took a little bit. I can't. This is one of those where like they didn't really need to take that long to review it. I know it looked close, but it was like Kadri's foot was in the zone, and people were like, I don't see the puck. I'm like, well, that's because it hasn't crossed the line, guys.
Yeah.
That's why you can't
it's
see
in that
the puck
line
from
right there with everyone.
Yeah, like they're like, oh, I can't see the puck, and I'm like, well, yeah, because it's not in the zone, which means it's offside. So, I mean, nobody on the ice was more happy that was called back than Nick Robertson. And I wrote in our Discord chat, I'm like, well, that just means Nick Robertson gets a little more time to avoid Craig Berube going back to the bench. But what does Nick Robertson do? He redeems himself.
He does, but after he missed, I think it was 2 shifts. Yarncroke and Nylander took his place. So Craig Berube put a message out
Cracked the whip a little bit, and then we saw him eventually come out, score on a great play by Max. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But that's kind of where the game sort of tilted in the Leafs' favor, because they would go on to score 4 goals in that second period. They hadn't even been able to score 4 goals in a game at home in God knows how long. And Auston Matthews gets a pair. When Nylander gets obviously a goal. You see Bobby McMahon. Crazy. He hasn't scored a goal in forever, and he has 18
games
on the year. 13 games he's been without a goal, and he has 18 on the season. Bobby would have been at like 25 at this point with the way that he was going. But so all in all, 6-2 victory. I think a lot of things to be, relieved. I think relief is probably the best way to describe it. I know a lot of people are just like, back on track sort of game. I think right now, the thought process should just be, okay, we can breathe a little bit, because, man, it was starting to look pretty ugly for this Leafs team.
Well, how about building block? Okay, let's use that word, because it's been such a negative thing. But this game was a microcosm of everything they wanted to do good. Like I said, the end of that first period used to be a backbreaker lately for this team, where they would just spiral out and then be done. So they overcame that. They overcame the goal that was scored to tie with the video review. I understand that, but sometimes the Leafs win those things and still end up shooting themselves in the foot. But then they end up getting the goals. But the power play was on cue tonight. The penalty kill was on cue tonight. Scott Lawton kind of redeemed himself a little bit here in the eyes of Leafs Nation, blocking shots, throwing hits, making key clears on the penalty kill. Brandon Carlos, same thing, kind of, endearing himself. But every player that seemed to need something tonight got it. Domi with the goal, Robertson, McMahon. You look at the dishes from Domi, also upping the assist game again. Matthews getting off the schneid, scoring a couple more goals, and getting into that play where he looks like himself. William Nylander scoring. So everything that needed to happen, that everybody has been kind of complaining about on whatever social media you sit on, seemed to come through tonight. And Joe Woll making key saves at key times to keep the game where it was, and then allowing the Leafs to elevate themselves to the 6-2 victory. And also saying, hey, Stolarz, maybe I'll get 2 in a row here, and you could sit on the bench for the next game while I capture a little bit more magic in my own game. By the way, season high 23rd win for Mr. Joe Woll tonight.
Yeah, it's a nice big bounce back for Joe Woll. Obviously, maybe that first goal he'd like to have back, but hey, what I like is that it didn't phase him. Could have easily, in that second goal, obviously I didn't think that was his fault, because he there was a bit of a deflection there. Even the overturn goal, rebound, nobody's able to cover the open guy on the rebound there. He couldn't really do much. But I think a nice solid bounce back effort. There were a couple of players who obviously had bounce back efforts. Why don't we talk about that on the other side here? This is the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by a new sponsor, Upwork. Scaling your business requires the right expertise at the right time. With Upwork, you can find specialized freelancers in marketing, development, design, and more. experts ready to help you take your business to the next level. Upwork gives your business flexibility by connecting your business with top freelance talent across multiple industries, including IT, AI, web development, and marketing. Whether you need extra hands for a project or a long-term partner, Upwork makes hiring simple and affordable. If you need help with the marketing campaign, Upwork can connect you with a freelance expert who delivers incredible results. Posting a job is free and simple within a day, multiple candidates you can choose will be able to choose from. Instead of hiring full-time, Upwork helps find affordable, top-tier freelancers to scale businesses efficiently. Visit Upwork.com right now and post your job for free. That's upwork.com, Upwork.com to connect with top talent and grow your business today. Today's show is also brought to you by Game Time. There's nothing like watching basketball, hockey, baseball live. The energy from the crowd, the sound of sneakers on the hardwood, the hit of the bat, the players shooting the puck on the ice, maybe even a celebrity sighting courtside. If you want to catch a game live in person, Game Time makes getting tickets easier than ever. Game Time's new feature, Game Time Picks, filters out the fluff, shows you only the best deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time scrolling through thousands of tickets. I like checking to see if there's any great deals on, especially Leaf games in the city, trying to find the best deals, on one of the hottest tickets in town. And Game Time Picks even highlights super deals, giving you the best bang for your buck. And obviously, you get a little bit of peace of mind with seats views before you buy, no surprise fees, and a lowest price guarantee. You can book with total confidence. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. Welcome back to the Locked On Leafs podcast. David Morassutti, and joining me today is my boy James from Offside Hockey Talk. As you can see, Mike is not here. He is let's just say he's enjoying St. Patrick's Day. That he wanted to ask if he could enjoy a little St. Patrick's Day. I said, not a problem, Mike. We got lots of people here willing to let Mike have a good time with the boys on St. Patrick's Day. My routine today was got to watch the Buds in those beautiful St. Pat's uniforms. I got the one from a few years ago. I always liked this one when they had it. Definitely like the newer one a bit better. Ones too. I think what would make them perfect though is a little more green. Show me a little more green on the jersey. White's fine. White's classic. I do love myself a little more green. So it's always great though when you get to have those alternate jerseys. I think the Leafs have one of the nicer arrays of alternate jerseys in the league. All right, with every victory, we haven't done this in a little bit. With every victory, we get to do the 3 stars of the game. Mr. James, who is your third star? Actually, we usually go in reverse order now. I always forget that. First star of the game. Who is your first star?
First star of the game for me is someone I've been pretty hard on, and that's Auston Matthews. If you read my Twitter at all, you see that I'm putting out many times that Auston Matthews probably should have been sat like a Tkachuk until the playoffs. He apparently is dealing with a couple of nagging injuries. He's trying to play through, muscle his way through. Doesn't matter what show you listen to, everybody talks about it. So for me tonight, Auston Matthews looked like the old Auston Matthews, battling through checks, winning battles along the board, scoring goals in traffic. It was Auston Matthews. Loved it. So, yeah, first star for me is Pappy all the way.
Yeah, it was a great night for Auston Matthews. That whole line was really good. They were on the ice at 5-on-5 for 7 high danger chances for and only 1 against. That's more of what you like to see from this top unit. But it wasn't the fact that Auston Matthews was getting chances at 5-on-5. It was the fact that he scored not 1, 2 goals on the power play. He hasn't done that since 2021. 4 years since the last time he scored multiple goals on the power play in the same game. Crazy to think, but hey, this is something maybe that bit of an understanding from Auston Matthews, knowing that you get these power play opportunities, I gotta show myself a little more.
Fair.
Gotta get myself in better little scoring areas. Like the first one, he's in his wheelhouse there. He sees the lane for the shot, he gets it by. The second one, I was more impressed with. It wasn't the nicest goal. I felt like, let's be honest, Flames goaltending not the best tonight. But what I liked is that quick movement. Matthews quickly, not thinking about it, get the shot off. Right, you have an opportunity there, get the puck on net and score. And so you have to like the fact that this looked more like the Auston Matthews we've been looking for. I know that his injury has been a mystery, but it's just nice to see that there is, maybe just a little bit of realization from Auston Matthews that he needs to lead a bit more after after the coaching staff pretty much called out the whole team. You needed your captain to step up there, and that's what he did.
No, fully agree. First man out on the morning skate too today. So obviously showing up and showing out. I want to throw an honorable mention out to Matthew Nyes tonight. He won't be one of my stars, but throwing the body around, battling hard for the pucks, really going in there and digging for it. So that's what they needed on Matty Nyes. It looks like that confidence is really building back for him. He's trucking people too, so I'm loving it.
Yeah, he is trucking it, and I do like the fact that he isn't playing pedestrian at all. We need to see a little bit more of that from Matthew Nyes, but I thought this was a nice game from him. I mean, he got nice assists on the Matthews goal there. He could have tried to jam it on net. He had a bit of an open lane there, and he says, "I'm gonna give it to my captain. He'll find a way. He's got the hot hand." So nice to see Matthew Nyes kind of get back to it. Your second star, James,
my second star of the game, and it's not pretty, but it's the overall elements of the game that this guy brought, and he's kind of been I don't know, a whipping boy, so to speak, because of the way that he was traded for, the assets, and Scott Laughton. Tonight was just a meat and potatoes game. He didn't score, obviously, but blocking shots, clearing it, being a key cog on the penalty kill is huge for this team, especially the way the penalty kill has been going lately. Really one of the worst teams in the NHL since the calendar turned to January. So you really want that to start elevating as we're heading towards the playoffs. And tonight, Scott Laughton, to me, did those right things, threw the right hits, played along the board, battled for the puck, blocked the shots when it mattered. And that's how you're going to endear yourself as a guy. If you're not scoring, you better be doing all those little intangibles that you can bring to the table. And Scott Laughton did that in spades tonight. I love it. So he's my second star for that reason, just because he needs to have a little bit of a field goal moment here where he's been basically said, why did we trade for this guy? As a lot of people saying. For me, this is the reason why you traded for him. He gives you that depth, and he gives you that guy that is gritty, that can play up and down a little bit in your lineup. So I love it. Scott Laughton, my second star.
Yeah, and I wasn't too thrilled to see him as a 4C. I think if you're going to take him off center, at least put him on the top line wing. But I think they just wanted to give him a chance to kind of get his feet under him a little bit. And I don't think this is going to be a permanent thing for Scott Laughton to be the fourth line center. I think he is destined to play more than I'm just looking at his ice time for tonight, more than where is Scott Laughton here? More than for fourth line center, he played 1450. I thought it was pretty good on the penalty kill. That was like one of those things you wanted to see. Obviously, the Leafs penalty kill, big bounce back for them. 0 for 4 were the Flames tonight on the power play. I think Laughton played a big part of that. You said it, got some hits in. I think they'll eventually figure it out what they want to do. I think this was one of those games where they wanted to get that third line back and just get those guys going a bit. And that's why I'm giving Max Domi my second star. I know a lot of people have been very unhappy with Max Domi. He has not performed up to standard of what we were expecting from him when he signed that deal. But he's getting better at the right time. He's obviously he's not going to be a great shooter, right? He hasn't really been over his career, a career 9.7 shooting percentage. I didn't expect him to be, lighting the lamp too much. But what we saw, and what he obviously did score, but what we also saw was his ability to just thread the needle. This wasn't even threading the needle. This was, I'm going to thread it over 2 defender sticks, perfect sauce pass to Nick Robertson. Like that goal doesn't happen without Max Domi. So played a key role on 2 goals. And I've really liked his game. You know, even though the Leafs have been struggling, Max Domi has been bringing it, right? He, you know, when Joseph Woll got bumped by Rasmus Anderson, smart thinking on Max Domi's part. I could easily have dropped the gloves with Anderson for bumping into my goalie, but he recognized the play was going the other way, and the Leafs ended up scoring. It could have ended up being dropping the gloves, play stops, you missed a chance to put a puck on net there. So I'm starting to see, I think we're starting to see a little more maturity out of Max Domi's game.
No, I was going to fully agree. Also, he was face washing Rasmus Anderson, and he took his hand back and kind of did there's a penalty coming. Okay, I'm going to back away from this and leave this alone. So that maturity there, but there's a few times he threw hits and things like that. A couple times in scrums where he could have went that extra Domi mile, but he didn't. He just kind of made sure he held his guy where he needed to hold him, and when the ref was telling him to back off, he backed off. So yeah, I really liked Max Domi's game tonight. Obviously, we want to see him dishing the puck and doing what he needs to do. For whatever reason, that third line, as it is, works with McMahon, Robertson, and Domi. So leave it. Let it run. Let it play. Let it just catch fire. And if it's going to be lightning in a bottle, let it be what it is, because your fourth line is going to be changing parts, especially with Pacioretty coming back.
Yeah, there's going to be – I feel like you're going to see a lot of movement. Maybe that third line sticks, or as you said, kind of sticks for the next little bit, and maybe they move a few other people around, and maybe they eventually start to get some matchups going late in the year. So it'll be interesting to see how that works. But right now, that third line, all 3 of those guys scored a goal tonight, so you can't look past those results. Let's just say. Your third star, James. Who do you got?
Well, it's got to be Joe Woll. It's got to be the brick wall for me, and the reason why I'm saying that is, again, another player that's kind of been blasted by Maple Leaf fans lately, just because of obviously the team's woes, scoring and all that good stuff, but also giving up timely goals in wrong places. And tonight was really a bounce back game for him. Obviously, you know, that goal that got overturned, it could have changed different things, but once that momentum stopped and all that stuff happened, usually it's hard to get back into a game, especially for goalies between the years. But he was there. He's mentally ready and ready to go, making, again, key saves at key times. I'm a big proponent of that, and people could say it doesn't matter. To me, for a team, when you make that save or do that one thing for your team back there when they need you for a moment, it really does spark the boys. We saw it tonight. But for me, Joe Woll, big complete game, loved it. And, hey, I want to see him against the Colorado Avalanche. Give him the treatment, let him roll.
I'd be interested to see if Craig Berube considers rewarding Joe Woll. I didn't give him my third star, but one thing I'll just say on Joe Woll is, yeah, he's taken a lot of criticism. Okay, granted, there's been some games where he hasn't been good enough. There's been some goals that he's allowed that he shouldn't allow. Totally get that. But I also just think that the goaltending in general just hasn't been given the support. When your team is scoring 2 goals a night, at home especially, ain't much you're going to be able to do as a goaltender to constantly try to keep your team in it. So I thought that was a nice big bounce back for Joe Woll. And I think you need to get both goalies going here. I know we like to say that this is Anthony Stolarz' net to lose, but Stolarz hadn't exactly been the stabilizing force either. So you kind of have to see if one of them maybe takes a little bit of the reins here. And I think at this point, they do want to get Stolarz going to that point. But I think if you're Joe Woll right now, you want to make that decision a lot harder than it has been. It's just
well, you also got to remember, this is the most games that Joe Woll has played in the NHL.
Yeah,
in a single season. Last year, he only played 25 games. And I mean, he has almost that many wins this season at 23 now. So this is a goaltender that really hasn't had full-time playing minutes. And the reason why Anthony Stolarz was brought as well to be the 1A, 1B situation for the Maple Leafs. So this guy is still growing into a starter's role, which the Leafs do believe, obviously rewarding with that contract, that he is going to be, a future, maybe, bona fide number 1 starter.
Yeah, exactly. My third star, I'm gonna give it to both Jake McCabe and Chris Tanev. that's more of what I like to see from those two. I know that technically, yes, they were on for a goal against in this. They were -1. I think. Well, I think Tanev was. I don't know if McCabe was. I know just Tanev was. But I kind of just think that this was a game where they needed their best D pair to look like their best D pair. Like their top shutdown defense pair need to help stop the bleeding a little bit. And I think they did do that tonight. And they only allow one high danger chance at 5-on-5. Just one throughout the whole game. And we know those guys play hard defensive minutes. So I liked what I saw. Tanev had 3 blocks, in this game. McCabe had 2 blocks and a hit. McCabe also played just over 21 and a half minutes. Tanev just under 19 minutes. So I liked their game quite a bit. They played a lot on that penalty kill. That penalty kill was really good tonight. So a nice game from what we need to see from those two.
They're going to be your key cogs come the playoff time as your shutdown pair. So you want to see them start hitting really good stride, from here on out, basically, especially where the logjam is now at the top of the Atlantic. You're going to rely on those guys to shut down a lot of top guys. You have McKinnon and Co. coming in on Wednesday night. Many different good players coming through that they're going to be tested with. So it also gives a little bit extra life for Carlo and Morgan Riley as well. If those two are shutting down top players, it then gives them more favorable matchups for Carlo and Riley as well. So,
yeah, that pairing remains, I think, imperative to the Leafs' success. We're going to now put this game aside because there is a little bit of talk we got to have with a certain Leafs player that still is in the limelight when it comes to his future in Toronto, and a team that continues to think that they'll make it a little more difficult on the Leafs to try to retain him. We'll discuss that next here on the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
The NCAA tournament is here, and so is the bracket breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
Welcome back here to the Locked On Leafs podcast. David Morassutti joining me is my good buddy James from Offside Hockey Talk. And yeah, bracket time. James, are you a big bracket guy?
I'm not a big bracket guy, but everybody in the office around me is. So I got my knowledge, and I might be slapping down a couple of brackets myself to see where I can go.
Yeah, I put I'm one of those fools that doesn't know as much about March Madness and still tries to put together a bracket. Never going to be perfect, but you kind of hope you're close enough. So make sure you're checking out the bracket breakdown on Amazon Fire TV there, and you'll get some good insight to maybe help yourself with your bracket. Now we're going to shift gears, as I said before, about our favorite conversation, and that is our good boy Mitch Marner and his contract. Because again, we have to always get some sort of developing story on a thing that's not going to be developing for a while. I think we've kind of understood this, but they didn't stop here. LeBron of TSN reporting today that Mitch Marner, we know, is likely going to be pushing himself going towards free agency to maybe see what else is out there. And one team that I probably didn't expect to put themselves full right in the center focus on this conversation was the Carolina Hurricanes. But after they made that pitch to trade Rantanen for Marner, something made me thought that, okay, they traded Mikko Rantanen. I don't know if this is the end of the Marner interest from the Hurricanes. And Pierre LeBrun almost pretty much confirms that the Hurricanes will indeed be one of those teams that are going to try to pitch to Mitch Marner if he were to come to the open market. And frankly, I understand why. This is a team that has certainly had a tough time attracting top-end free agents in Carolina there. They couldn't get Jake Gensel to come back. They didn't. Mikko Rantanen wanted nothing to do with that market. So they're going to try to use the good old, we got a lot of money. Let's see if Mitch Marner's willing to sign train. But James, when we had this conversation, that's a lot of smoke you're saying there.
Well, here's one key thing. So obviously Toronto is now the only team that can sign him to an 8-year deal.
Yeah.
So that's max money. So we know Mitch and his agent are all about the do-re-mi. So the Leafs can offer up the most amount of money. We all now know what Mikko Rantanen is getting paid, and Mitch Marner is not getting paid more than that. Sorry, I don't care what your agent says, Mitchie. It's not happening. So you're in Mikko Rantanen maybe territory. That's for sure. I'll say that. Maybe a smidge less, to be honest with you. Obviously, we all know Dallas's taxes situation, so maybe because of the tax thing, it looks like it's more, but on the actual looking, it's going to be even with Mikko where he is, and he will be a Leaf. Mitch Marner will be here. He doesn't want to leave. This happened the last time, except the Leafs kind of had the hammer where he's an RFA. This time he's a UFA, but this always happens. His clients always drag it out until the bitter end. The Leafs can give them the best deal. The Leafs will give him the best deal. He wants to be here. He doesn't want to leave. His wife doesn't want to leave. This is home. A lot of Leaf fans are probably listening to me say this and say, why sign him now? For me, it's get it over with. You both want to be here. The team wants him here. They have already made that abundantly clear in the media. They've negotiated themselves in the media saying, we offered him a lot of money to be here. We want Mitch Marner to be here. Well, all we did was our due diligence in saying, hey, if you don't want to sign right now, that's fine. But, we have an offer. We have to present it to you. Do you want to go to Carolina? No? Okay, cool. We still want to keep you, just so you know. So that is already known. Mitch Marner has already made it known he wants to be here. So it's really just figuring out how much money they have to back up in the Brinks truck that Marner stays. And for everybody saying it matters for the playoffs, I'll go with what Elliot Friedman said. If Mitch Marner leaves the Toronto Maple Leafs and they break this marriage up, it'll be a lot of regret on both sides for a very long time. So this right here, I believe Mitch stays. He signs. Thank you, Carolina, for basically maybe upping Mitch Marner's contract is all you're going to do. Because Mitch is now going to say, well, Carolina's going to pay me a whole lot of money. Well, Mitch, the Columbus Blue Jackets offered you a whole lot of money, and you turned them down as an RFA, which was your right to be able to sign over there and go to Columbus, but you said no to more money. So we know where your heart is, Mitch. The team wants you here too. The fans, as much as they say they don't, they do. So just go out and have a banger of a playoffs, and everybody, let's get married to a lot of money and have some fun, because that's what's going to happen.
I think the big one here for me, I understand the putting that contract idea to bed and the desire to not have this even be a talking point anymore. But my thinking is, if I'm the Leafs and you have a good intuition, almost like William Nylander, that you don't think Mitch Marner wants to leave and he wants to stay, I think the Leafs are trying to play into this a bit, that they're trying to lean into it. They want to test Marner's desire to stay. And I think now you gotta be reasonable with that. You're not going to go to Marner and say, hey, we're going to offer you what you're making now. We're going to offer you what Willie got. I don't think that's going to happen. I do think that they want to keep Mitch. I think Brad Schliff is not a guy that BS's a lot. Like, I think what he says is what he thinks. I just think that they're not going to give Marner everything that he wants to. Because that's just a team protecting its business. But I think they also understand that this is now. Martin didn't want to talk about it because he didn't want it to get to this point. Unfortunately, it kind of got to this point because of just how this whole
trade deadline leaked out.
Trade deadline leaked out, and also Matthews and Nylander both signed for a reason. They got the contracts done because they didn't want this to be something they'd have to talk about during the season. Now, obviously, Nylander took a little bit longer to sign, but eventually he did sign. So I think what I would say if I'm the Leafs to Mars, like, if you really want to stay, this is what we want to offer you. Let's get this done. That to me will be a kind of a big test of how much he does want to stay. And I do think he does want to stay. And I think maybe this might be where one of those situations where Marner needs to tell the agent, I want to stay. Let's just get this done. But I'm also the belief too that, you got the time, see how the playoffs go. Because as much as I know an exit could change the minds of Leafs fans, we'll see how much it changes the team and Marner as well. If Marner feels he has to go, that's his decision. But I don't know if that's the case necessarily. I don't think so. But I'm also of the belief that you gotta do your best to kind of quash what the noise outside is saying that he's going to get in the $13 million range. Like you gotta, if you're the Leafs, you gotta quash that ideology out there.
No, like I told you, he's going to be in the Mikko Rantanen area. That's my thought. Obviously, if you're a 100-point player, which he's flirted with a couple times, we won't lie, he can be an upper echelon guy, but he's not. Again, show me the playoffs, and I will show you a higher dollar value, no problem. Right now, if I'm signing you today, you're getting a Mikko Rantanen type deal because obviously, as the cap goes up, his cap percentage will not be as much as it is. It's like the old days when you're starting to look at signing guys, and there'll be guys that sign higher than Matthews and higher than Draisaitl and all that stuff, and you'll watch the percentage go differently. So they'll sign for higher, but really the percentage of the cap is the exact same or lower than Matthews, etc. But for me too, you look at this and say, okay, you want to get Marner done? I want to get John Tavares done. And a lot of people this season are finally jumping on the bandwagon that me and you have been on, that John Tavares is pretty much a point-per-game player. He's Mr. Consistent. He's a constant leader, loves the city of Toronto, chose us over the team that drafted him. I want to get this guy done, lock him up for 3 or 4 more years at 6.75, 7 mil, like is reported to be wanted for 3-4 years. I'm in. Get that done too. And people are saying, why are you bringing back the core? John Tavares is a player that I feel like you can win with. Mitch Marner, I want to see more. I want that first round playoff series that we had against Boston many moons ago, where he was laying down and blocking shots and doing all that stuff. I want that Mitch. If that Mitch shows up under Craig Berube this playoffs, all bets are off, boys. We're winning it. We're going all the way.
The only thing I'll disagree on Tavares before we end it here is if you're going to go out from a term, get that AAV down. I have no problem.
6.75, 7 mil for John Tavares, scoring 30 goals and popping you 60, 70 points. Ain't too shabby.
But if I'm the Leafs, I'm going to John Tavares and say we might need a little bit of money to get Matthew Knies done. We want to keep a guy like Steven Lorentz around. Can we get it to a figure that will show make you happy? Like John Tavares has made his money. I think the last contract paid him pretty handsomely. Let's see if we can get him. No, we're not asking John Tavares to take $3 million a year because that's not happening.
All right, how about 5 over 5?
I would be fine with 5. I wouldn't even say. I would say 3 years, $5 million a year. And I don't know what I think that's a pretty reasonable deal for him because at some point maybe he eventually becomes the 3C if we feel that's kind of if in a few years he does.
I think just to put this out here before you end the show, I think Paul Bissonnette's doing what he did last year with Craig Berube coming to the Leafs, talking about it on air. I think Sam Bennett is a slam dunk Toronto Maple Leaf if he hits free agency.
And I if I'm the Leafs, I'm telling Tavares, I'm telling Marner, hey, we might have a chance to really help push this team forward. Hey, it might not be Sam Bennett. There is another guy next year.
Well, that's 2 years from now, is it not?
20
talking about T-Mac.
I think we're talking about but I think that would be in 2026. So let's so 2026 might be another potential option there. So keep that in mind when we're looking at contracts that you're handing out. We'll leave it there. We'll leave it there. Thank you, James, for joining me today. Appreciate that. It was on a Leafs win on a St. Patrick's Day. So I hope if you enjoyed the game with a pint of Guinness or a green beer in your hand, or if you enjoyed it with your St. Patrick's gear, like myself, that you get to wear once a year, I hope you did enjoy that game. I want to thank you all for listening and supporting the show. And make sure you go and subscribe to Locked On Leafs podcast wherever you get your podcasts. And make sure you subscribe to us on YouTube. We're trying to get those subscribers up so that we can eventually give away a Leafs jersey. Yes, you did hear me, a Leafs jersey. So make sure you tune in to the next episode. Make sure you tell all your friends. Until next time, keep it locked right here on Locked On Leafs.